Afternoon, Tim. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Shaba. First day back after holidays. I'm good. I'm a little tired, as we were discussing. Sometimes holidays with families and kids are lovely, but always not always restful. But I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. We've both had a period of sort of holding the fort on our own, and it's certainly nice, but can be a little bit draining. So I've also had a period where I was just looking after the little one on my own with some support from family whilst my wife was away. But yeah, it can be tough. So we're both recovering, but we're still marching on with the Problem of Money podcast. So what are we going to be talking about this week?
Yeah, well, we were having a little chat and a little post summer reconnect, and we got a, well, you know this, but saying to everyone listening, we have a whole list of topics, and we're always happy if people email or write or mention things they want us to talk about. I thought it'd be fun after holiday and everyone getting back to work to talk about why does it so often seem heavy and serious on every level, and what's going on there, in our own lives. It's often like heavy, and even when we address it as a topic or on the news, it's all very serious. And there's this whole sort of field around money, I think, that makes it seem heavy and serious. And is it possible, and would it be useful to be a little bit more playful and light, just with the topic of money? So that's what
Mm.
we thought we'd talk about today. Not really a specific money challenge or issue, but more generally, whatever you're dealing with money, what happens if you relate to it in a playful and light way? And is that possible?
Surely not, Tim. I mean, just the thought of it. Money is immensely heavy, especially in my line of work. I would say that 99% of the time, people come with a very heavy outlook or heavy heart, even in relation to money. So I'm quite intrigued to see how we can make money a little bit lighter and a bit more playful. So,
Hmm.
uh, yeah,
Well,
it's off.
let's see. I mean, I'm even going to take a step back. I'm not, well, I think honestly, I am saying it's better if we take it lightly and playful, but even to invite people to consider for
Mm.
themselves. Sometimes it's very good to be serious. Sometimes it's good to be light. Sometimes it's good to be playful. Sometimes it's good to be heavy. The question, as always with this work, is are we giving ourselves a choice? Are we able to access kind of both of those ways of being? Or is there something about money, or more accurately, about how we relate to money or have been trained to think about money, that kind of locks us into being all a bit serious and heavy? And if that's true, is that actually helping us
Mm.
deal with money and deal with our lives?
So the first thing that just came to my mind around this, well, of course, Tim, for God's sake, money is serious because it's almost, I was almost going to say it's life or death.
Mm,
And for people that have listened previously, we've talked about how we can project into the future that suddenly, if I do my money wrong, I'm going to end up broke, poor, under a bridge with no food, and existentially I'm at risk, if I don't do money right. And
mm.
as soon as you said that around money being heavy or light, well, of course it's got to be heavy, and it's got to be serious, because if I don't do my money properly, Tim, I'm going to end up under a bridge. I went there really quickly.
Yeah, I saw you. I knew you were going to say life and death. Somehow I
Did
knew.
you?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
common? Is that quite common from what you've spoken to people about on the
Uh,
workshops? And
Sometimes I just sort of kind of have an intuition. Well, certainly what you said, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, the speed with which people in general go from exactly what you say, maybe taking a risk with money or spending my money on something I really want, how quickly they go to the anxiety. And the anxiety takes the form, exactly as you said, of a future projection, and I'll end up on the streets with no food, under a bridge, etc. So, a couple of things to say, because the heaviness is there in what you say, but it's nothing to do with money. The heaviness is something about emotion, anxiety, and how quickly that tension in us gets tangled up with money. So, one question, I'll just lay these down as markers and we'll see where we go. But one question we could ask ourselves is, where is the heaviness? Because it's very easy to say, well, the heaviness is in money. Money is heavy. But as you said, that's a projection. Maybe the heaviness is in me. Or maybe I'm carrying around some tightness, tension, heavy feeling, and I don't see it, so I tie it up with money. So, one question is, if I think money should be or must be heavy and serious, where is the heaviness really? And the other, which maybe is even more provocative, you say, well, of course, Tim, money is heavy and serious because it's life and death. What if I say, Shaba, what's so serious and heavy about life and death? We're all dealing with life and death. We're alive and then we're going to die. And I speak as someone who has a good friend who today or yesterday is moving into a hospice. And I've had some very beautiful, very light conversations with this person. Really amazing. We're all facing it, dealing with it. Does that mean it has to be heavy?
I mean, what you just said there brought brought me sort of crashing back down to earth, because as soon as you said it back, well, what's heavy about life and death, and also when your mortality is presented to you very up close and personal, suddenly money doesn't actually take on that much importance. Very interesting.
It's not unusual. And I don't want to simplify or romanticize this experience because, of course, everyone will engage with their own mortality in different ways at different times. And it will include heavy, serious feelings and playful, light feelings. But it's not unusual that some people, once they've got over the initial shock of a terminal diagnosis, are able to access a carefreeness and a lightness and really see how they didn't need to be taking certain things as seriously
Mm,
as they did. It's very interesting for some people, and it's a bit of a blessing. For that moment of really, I cannot escape my mortality, it's imminent. For some people, they really see a lightness that they were never able to see while they were busy trying to secure their lives.
yeah, I remember just reading a book. Side note, it was called Top Five Regrets of the Dying by a palliative care nurse. I forget the name of the lady. I'm not sure if you read
We
the
can
book.
maybe put it in the notes.
Yeah, put it in the notes. But again, it was like all of these people that she was a witness to at the end of their lives, and them, none of them reported or sort of were stressed about how much money they made or how much money they didn't make. It was all about the regrets around, maybe not having the connections with people, or how they showed up in the world, and those sorts of things. There was nothing really about what did I not get to buy, or what did I miss out from on my investing strategies and my
Did I
portfolio.
fly first class? Did I
Yeah,
stay in
yeah,
five-star hotels
yeah.
or
It wasn't
little
any of
cottage?
that.
Or yeah.
So, yeah, why the heaviness?
So let's dive in. And where we might go today, let's see where we go. Where this leads us eventually is in our own work. We can start being much more playful actually with how we deal with money. And I want to say straight away, that's not just if we have some money. Even if we don't have money, we can still adopt a different attitude, even if our actual money is much tighter and we have to be very kind of careful with it. But in our own growth and development, often in this work and at workshops, I encourage people just to change their pattern with money, just do something different with money. Part of the heaviness with money is that all of us get very locked into our way of being with money. We've talked about this before. So, just as a quick recap, all of us have a way of dealing with money, including spending it, saving it, earning it, not looking at it, judging it in other people, judging it in ourselves. So, we have this whole relationship to money. And I call that your money dance. And the key thing about your money dance, well, two things. One is it's mainly not very conscious, right? You kind of don't really see your money dance. And the other is you just think it's normal. So, of course, everyone would be like this. Of course, You think everyone would get stressed like this,
Yeah.
everyone would do this, everyone would find this difficult. But then you realize as soon as you talk to people about money, it's not so. There are as many different styles of money dance as there are people. And of course, if we have lots of money, the potential for the sorts of things we might do in our money dance will be different if we compared to if we have very little money. Actually, the movements are remarkably similar. Can I ask? Do I receive? Can I
Mm.
give? All of these things are quite deep human movements. So they're not just about how much money we have. Now, so one answer is this: the more fixed and rigid I am in my money dance, in my way of being, that will always feel more heavy. The more I have many possibilities and I'm not always fixed into an unconscious pattern, so I can be flexible or creative or responsive, I can go this way or that way, the more likely it is to feel light.
Okay. Can you give an example of someone who's like fixed?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. A simple example. You're on holiday, you're hungry, you want some food, and you pass by a place and it looks nice, and the kids are hungry and you're ready for a rest. But you look at the menu, and it's not like you don't actually have the money, but you have some number in your mind that's fixed beyond which you think, well, that's too expensive,
Yeah.
right? So that's just sort of some number you've made up. As soon as you see the menu, you tense up, and then you either go in and you don't enjoy it because you're tense, because you're above your threshold, or you go, no kids, we go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
But then you might walk for another 5, 10, 15 minutes and you da 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 da. And before you know it, the whole situation, rather than, okay, we're hungry, this looks nice, let's go eat, the whole situation, as well as you're getting more hungry and more crabby and the kids are, but the whole thing starts to become serious. It's not fluid or flexible anymore.
Mm.
That's just off the top of my mind. I saw you smiling, so I don't
Oh,
know.
I could imagine that would just be me.
Right. But it's many people. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying, of course, if you haven't got money, it's too expensive. You could also have the flexibility with no problem just to go, "Nope, haven't got that money, we're gonna walk." But they could still be fluid and flexible, right?
Okay. All
So
right.
the
Okay.
heaviness is in me in, "Well, should I go? Should I go? If I do go, I'm not gonna enjoy it. If I don't go, I'm gonna be feeling a bit shitty and guilt." And suddenly the heaviness is in me and my energy. It's perfectly creative and fluid to look at it, have a laugh and go, "Oh, wouldn't it be lovely if we could afford that? Well, one day we can. Let's keep walking." There's an ease and a
Mm.
lightness, whether I go into the restaurant or not. But for
Okay.
many of us, that just looking at the menu would trigger something around the number,
Yeah.
and the situation almost takes on a little bit of a shadow.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking of it as like there's no residual tension. You decide not to go, but it's not a decision that plagues you or even haunts you for the
No,
next
no.
hour or two.
And you could even enjoy the menu and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, kids, yeah, it'd be lovely, but actually, yeah, we haven't got the money to buy you dinner there, but we'll find somewhere else." The whole thing can be done with ease, okay?
Mm.
So again, the heaviness or the lightness is absolutely an inner resource.
Mm.
Because I'm free. I'm free to choose to go in or choose not to, or choose to spend my money or choose that I'm not going to spend my money.
Yeah.
The heaviness is in us. Well, we'll get further into it, but it's very much in us.
There's a heaviness, yeah, but there's a heaviness in the statement, I feel, from what you said, where if you turned around to your kids and said, "Oh, we can't afford to buy you dinner at this restaurant," that feels like a heavy statement. I don't know, because obviously it's laden with
Well,
projections.
it's very interesting. I mean, if we explore, because this is an example,
Yeah.
but actually encouraging people to consider for themselves, kind of in the moment, where is the heaviness?
Mm.
Is really interesting. And what we do is we always assume the heaviness is in the situation. So we think the heaviness is in money. Money is heavy and
Mm.
serious. Or no, it's in the restaurant, or being able to having to say to my kids, we can't afford to eat
Mm.
there. If you just if we play with it a little bit, I don't know cars, but can you think of a super duper expensive car, like a really, really expensive,
Or like a Lamborghini.
right, Lamborghini, okay? So your kids say, "Oh, we'd love a Lamborghini." What would it feel heavy to say, "Well, we can't afford a Lamborghini"?
Yeah, it would just be like, yeah, that wouldn't
Could
feel
you have a
heavy.
laugh about it with your
I mean,
kids?
yeah,
Like,
of course, yeah, yeah. If my daughter came up to me, yeah, she's 5, she doesn't really, just like,
yeah.
"Daddy, I like Lambo," be like, it wouldn't feel heavy to say
Yeah.
no to that.
So if we just do a little bit of detective work, what you're saying is it's not heavy for me to say I can't afford a Lamborghini.
Yeah,
That's fine. I can do that in a fun way or a light
yeah.
way. So why does it become heavy to say we're not going to eat in that restaurant?
Yeah, I feel like you've bowled me a googly there. If we're using a cricketing analogy, I think that's just too much for even me who loves to explore on this
You
Monday
don't
to
need the answer. I mean,
yeah,
the fact that it's hard to answer is the answer. I can
yeah,
say what I think,
yeah,
but it's interesting to notice, right? I mean, my kids always because they hate my car because
yeah,
I've got a I think I've got a 16-year-old VW, which
yeah,
I love, and it's very reliable and it's perfect. And the guy in the garage always tells me, "No, no, keep it. It's good. It's good." My kids, it's become an embarrassing dad car.
yeah,
And actually, they always want me to buy a Tesla, and I always say I actually never say it's because I can't afford it. I might use a different phrase. I might say I don't want to spend my money on that.
yeah. I think that's different.
But the truth is, I probably can't afford a Tesla, not without some difficulty.
Yeah,
Um, I'm going to suggest
mm,
that this is the answer, and that in this because this is just one example, but in this answer will tell us a lot about heaviness and seriousness. I'm going to suggest that that meal example has put you on a boundary of uncertainty. With what was the car we were going to, a Lamborghini,
yeah,
you're not on a boundary. It's so evident to you that
mm,
that's not something you either able to or would spend your money on,
yeah,
that there's not a lot of emotionality in it. It's clear cut.
yeah,
And if your daughter saw on holiday, I don't know, a £2 bag of sweets and said, I want this, you might say no because it's too
yeah,
much sugar, or no because you've got to look
yeah,
after your teeth. But you wouldn't say, no, we can't afford a £2.
yeah.
So there's examples that are clear cut. But when we get to an area where we're not sure,
Right.
it stirs up our inner conflict. And it's like, well, I've kind of got the money, but oh, it triggers something
Yeah,
for me. It makes me anxious or fear I'm missing something or losing something if we did eat there. But also, I want to be the sort of person that would take my family there.
yeah,
So, what happens is we get stirred up our inner tensions.
yeah,
And as we've spoken in the past, money ties up with core parts of our identity that we're often not in touch with. So my guess is you might want to be a generous, fun-loving dad, but you also worried that if you spend all your money, you'll whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And so what comes up is your inner tension, and that's always feels heavy because when I feel
Right.
tense, literally my body tenses up, my muscles tense up, my
Mm,
energy doesn't flow, and it actually feels tight and heavy, and we get more serious.
that makes perfect sense. I think that even translates into why when people come to see me,
Yeah,
money's heavy because there's this tension around, have I got enough? You
yeah,
know, am I going to be okay?
yeah,
All of these sort of things that we believe, I'm going to be okay when I have a certain number. We believe, I think, again, like we've always said, yes, a certain amount of money is going to give you a certain lifestyle, but that's all it's going to give. It doesn't determine the quality of the lifestyle or the relation or anything else, but it'll allow you to buy a certain amount of food and have a certain amount of holidays and do all of the things that you want to do. But this feeling of security and feeling okay, and that I'm kind of immune from disaster, so to
mm,
speak,
mm.
has been tied up in a number, and there's a tension as to whether I'm actually, as a human being, I'm going to be okay. And I think that's where maybe when people come to see me, there's a heaviness around money, because that's predominantly what they're coming for.
It makes sense. And so more and more in this conversation, we're beginning to see or suggest that the heaviness isn't in money, it's in us or some of
Mm,
us. And that heavy, tight, whatever, serious feeling maybe gets triggered or provoked in certain situations. And one situation might be I'm going to talk to a financial advisor, or I'm going to think about the future. It might sort of evoke certain responses. Another way to flip it, which might seem crazy or very difficult for us, is you're saying the heaviness and the seriousness comes because often people are worried about, will I be okay? I would flip it the opposite, which is if I'm preoccupied with, am I okay and will I be okay? I will always be tense. It's a
mm,
tense place to be. I will tend to feel heavy and serious. To the extent that I'm preoccupied with my anxiety and will I be okay, that that my mind's there the whole
mm,
time, I focus on it. It's quite hard to be light and playful. It's not a light and playful place to be. So the more I'm focused on that, the more likely I am to be heavy and tense. And if I think my future okayness is about money, then the whole topic will become heavy and serious. Now, again, a caveat. This doesn't mean we shouldn't think about money,
mm,
doesn't mean we might not go and see a financial advisor, doesn't mean if we have the good fortune to have some savings, we might not want to be intelligent about what we do with them. That's all fine. It's just if I think that whole conversation always needs to be tense and heavy because
mm.
it's about whether I'll be okay, I'm likely to get locked into a particular way of being. And as we've said before, A, I might make worse decisions, investment decisions, and B, whether I do or not, I'm training myself just to stay heavy and anxious about the future.
I reckon that the majority of people that I interact with are so tense and are so heavy that they don't even realize that they're tense and heavy
Yeah.
because it's the default.
Yeah, it's what we think we should be around money.
I don't even think it's that conscious.
No.
I think it's just our state is so anxious and
Mm.
so concerned about money day to day. It's quite consuming because you've got money conversations throughout the day. For a lot of people, I can't speak for everyone, for a lot, but in your work, when you switch on the news, when you're talking with friends and family, a lot of the time it's around sort of things that you might want to do or things that you might want to do in the future, or things for the kid, and everything does sort of revolve around, well, you're going to need money to do this, money to do that, in a lot of instances. And I think that people are just constantly plugged into this
Mm.
tension and anxiety. Then throw in the people that are in debt,
Mm.
which is quite a lot of the population are holding some sort of debt, whether it be a mortgage, a credit card, etc. And it feels like actually the frequency is of a very low level frequency when it comes to money and heaviness.
I think that's true. And maybe the mistake we make, the biggest mistake, is we think it has to be like that. It's like where you
Mm,
were at the start of the podcast, right? Is think, well, of course, I must be heavy or serious because I've got to pay
yeah,
the mortgage. Well, yeah, you've got to pay the mortgage. Let's assume. Who's saying you couldn't pay the mortgage just as well or better by being light and playful? I mean, the mortgage company doesn't care. As long as it gets its money, it doesn't care whether you're having a good time or a crappy
yeah.
time. Now, I'm really conscious when I say this, it could seem really outrageous, right? It could seem almost offensive to people. And what I would say is exactly what you've just said, Shaba. If people are feeling a bit provoked or offended by this, consider whether it's just that I'm some idiot talking rubbish. Maybe I am. But consider if something about exactly what you said, the money field and the way we've been trained to think about it, and how questions of money tie up these kind of core, tight emotions of anxiety, fear, etc. If that's the heaviness, and if I have to pay bills or pay mortgage or make money decisions, Who says I couldn't engage with that in a more playful and light way? Just consider that. And we
Um,
could go on to more examples
yeah,
of how we might do this, and also what playfulness and lightness might bring that's really helpful to our
yeah.
money lives.
So let's move on to that in terms of how do we break
Mm,
or how do we burst the balloon of heaviness?
great. Well, as always with this work, we divide it into a few different stages. The first is just to challenge our own thinking, which I think we've been doing so far in
Mm,
this conversation. So wherever I think it's heavy or I couldn't engage with that lightly or whatever, really ask yourself, is it true? Is it definitely true? Could it be possible to relate to this in a more playful way? Just ask yourself those counter examples. That's a good step.
mm,
The second thing is what we sometimes call detective work. And it begins in this case with the question of where is the heaviness really? And for
mm,
us to start to notice in ourselves, we're always saying in the end, the feeling or the experience is not in money, it's in us, whether we see it or not.
mm,
So if money feels heavy and serious or tense, the detective work is to start to notice the feeling of heaviness, tension is in me. I'm serious around it. Then it starts to give us a bit more choice. So I might really notice when it feels money, actually, I'm heavy. Money's just money. Money's still being neutral or
mm,
everything or nothing. I'm heavy. And if we can own I'm really heavy around that, that might feel a bit shocking if we've not seen our own heaviness before, our own tension, or it might seem almost a bit sad, but it's actually a very healthy step, right? So the first thing is, could one be playful or does money have to be heavy? The second step is to see the heaviness, the seriousness is in me. And then the third thing could be yeah, I think for now, the third thing really is, well, could I take small experiments to start to play more or treat money more lightly, right? If I see all the heaviness is in me, then I'm also capable of being playful and light. I might not feel like it very much,
mm,
or I might not, maybe I feel very light with my kids, but very heavy with money, for example.
yeah.
Or I feel playful and light in certain circumstances, but not with money. I've made a split. But let's assume all of us humans know how to be playful and light and heavy and serious. I've just got stuck around money. It feels heavy. So I would just start to look for small examples to bring my silliness or my playfulness or my lightness into my relation with money. Now, probably I wouldn't start with my mortgage. That might feel a
Mhm,
bit too much, right? Probably I wouldn't start with a big business deal, although you could. But I might start with, I don't know, out with my kids and just have some fun with money or do a different experiment with money. Or one thing I often do with people as a first step is if they go to a pub, I think we've talked about this before, quite recently actually, but if I'm always the first one out with my wallet, I just do something different. I don't pay, or I ask a friend to pay, or I'm just playing with my pattern. That's all I'm doing. I'm playing with
yeah.
my pattern.
I actually, based on the last conversation that we had, which was about how do we do money I think it was in groups or when,
That's right. It
yeah,
was a
yeah,
LinkedIn post, wasn't
it
it?
was a
Yeah.
LinkedIn post,
Mm.
how do we split the bill?
Mm.
So I was out, and for the first time, I think in ages, I can't remember, I, when the bill came, I was like, I'd like to split it.
Great. And
Yeah,
that's a
right.
very good behavior for you.
Usually it would be a case of like one person offers to pay. I'll pay. No, I'll pay. No, no, no. I'll pay. And secretly, you're like, actually, yeah. Do you know? I'd like it if you paid this time, but I'm not gonna. And actually, this time I was like, sod it. I don't want to do the dance. I'd feel comfortable just splitting today's dinner because I've just come off the back of a holiday. I don't really want to pay. So I'm not gonna. And it was. And I think it's very disingenuous sometimes when then you say, no, no, let me, but secretly you don't want to pay, right? And so actually, yeah, let's just split it. And that felt really, I was like, I just avoided the dance. But sorry, I interjected from you being
Well,
a
it's
bit,
a great example. No, it's a brilliant
I didn't
example.
feel that was playful though. But it
Well,
brought
I
lightness. It
actually
brought lightness.
exactly. That's what I wanted to say. So I think it was a great example. When I say be playful and light with money, I don't mean let's throw away. Maybe that's one experiment for some people, but it's not a superficial
Yeah.
or a caricature of lightness. What I mean is, if I'm playful, it means I can just try stuff.
Mm,
If I'm light, it's just like this. I can go in the restaurant or not go in the restaurant or do this or so the key to being playful and light is not being silly or frivolous
mm,
necessarily. It's I'm just going to try something and see, and it's no
mm,
biggie. So your example was beautiful because rather than getting fixed into your usual pattern of sorting out bills, you just went, sod this, I'm going to do something different. So that is the spirit of play. You just
mm.
tried something. And as it happened, you sounded quite serious. You said, I would like to split the bill. But it was still playful in my definition because the play was like, I don't have to always do the same thing. I can just do it and
Mm,
try and see. And that's
yeah,
playful.
yeah,
It just reminds me of kids. Kids sometimes when they're playing, let's say they play doctor and nurse or
mm,
teacher or policeman or whatever, sometimes when they're playing, they play very serious, don't they?
yeah,
I'm the policeman, but it's still play because they can be the policeman and they can be this and they can, because they're experimenting with roles.
mm,
And the heaviness for humans comes when we get stuck in one way of being. That's heavy and serious. And
yeah,
then we blame money. So
mm,
anything where I can just change my repertoire, change what I ask for, what I give, and realize it's not the end of the world is playful. So actually, I think it was a
yeah.
great
Okay.
example.
Have you got any examples from either clients you've worked with or in your own life? How are you playful with money?
Yes, good question. Well, since I've got into this work, I charge for my work in many different ways. So for me, the whole topic of how do I arrange fees, I do one-to-one coaching work, I do organization consulting, I do workshops, all of those, I've got quite a lot of examples of playing with money.
Yeah,
And maybe that'd be nice to do a follow-up conversation on the question of charging and rates and fees.
yeah,
But the key is I'm so much more interested in playing with money. And what I would say in my professional work is there's a serious intent behind the play. So I don't just play for the sake of it. I'm really thinking, what is the best way to arrange money here to set up this project or this coaching in the best possible way?
mm,
But in order to set it up in the best possible way, it's necessary often to go, we could do it this way, we could do it that way. How do you feel about that? And it can look quite light and free.
yeah,
So I think that could be a next podcast. What do you think?
yeah. It could, and your playful way of charging was basically the first interaction I had with you when a good friend of ours, Cleona, said, "I think you'd really benefit going on a workshop with Tim." So I was like, "Okay." If someone recommends something, and I, generally just go ahead and check it out. So I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting." When I got to the sign up page, I was looking, and I was like, "So how much does this cost?" And it was like, pay what you feel's appropriate. And I think you had 0, and then you had a few amounts. I think 200, 355. I can't remember how many options there were, but it was literally, and it didn't feel like if you put 0, you were going to be, you know, singled out for being, the cheapo. But it was just like pay. And I was like, I have never ever in my life come across someone who was charging in that manner. And I just instantly liked you on the back of, and it shook me. It actually took me. So your playfulness actually was like a jolt to me. It was just like, hold on, what's it like? This chap like is charging for something, but saying that you could turn up and not pay anything. I was like, wow. But there's obviously play in that, and yeah, it felt like there was a lightness to that. What it felt heavy for me,
Yeah.
but it felt like it was a lightness for you, because it was like, this chap just doesn't mind what he's, and that might not have been actually the intention behind it, but
Yeah.
it felt heavy for me to then have to make that decision. That was quite
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Well,
But
there's a lot in that, and
yeah,
maybe we can start the next conversation with diving in
mm,
to that, because there's a lot going on. I think in terms of connecting back to today, this is the point that when we're in our fixed routines, here's the ticket price, can I afford it, can I not? In some ways, although it's much more rigid and fixed, and therefore there's a lot less space for discovery and creativity, but it also feels somewhat familiar and comfortable. And as soon as we or someone with us does a little experiment with money or makes it lighter, it will surface more stuff around money. We
we'll
probably can't
save it for next time.
say, but why don't we do a follow up on um, playful ways to charge, and maybe we get into the whole topic of how one might charge or set fees for one's work.
Yeah, sounds good. Anything to wrap up with? I think we've sort of covered something really important, which I think people need to do the detective work and just realize where this heaviness is showing up, and just acknowledging it is such an important first step. And yeah, bring a little bit of play into your life with money.
So yeah, just to summarize for people, I think remember, play doesn't necessarily mean being silly. It means expand your repertoire, try things that are possible but not part of your fixed routine. That's what will create the lightness. And try them as far as you can without being trapped by some big heavy judgment about what it
Mm,
makes you or what it makes the other person. That's where it becomes lighter. And yeah, I've had people after the workshop go in and pay for meals for strangers, give money to people, just walk up to people and ask for money, just because they were trying to expand this very rigid range of money behaviors. So I also want to say, if you're playing with money, it can also include playing with being really tight, right? If you always think I have to be generous, or I must never ask, or I must never say no, then part of your play might be say, no, I'm not going to pay for that. Sorry. And if someone says, why? You say, because I don't want to.
yeah,
So you can play in many, many ways. You can bring lightness into any money situation. And of course, one still has to deal with the money situation, whatever it is. But there's no evidence we do better by being locked down, heavy and serious when we're engaging with these things.
yeah,
How's that for
absolutely.
today, Shaba?
That's great. Do you want to end by quickly mentioning your upcoming workshop?
Oh, I have an upcoming workshop. So I do run regularly workshops, sometimes online and sometimes face to face. I've got another one, I think from memory, 11th and 12th of October in Bristol. It'd be amazing if people hear this and want to come. And in general, if you check out my website, which is in the show notes, but it's timothymalnick.com, Malnick, Malnick. People can check that website and it will show all my forthcoming workshops. But next one, 11th and 12th of October.
In
Come and play.
Bristol.
Come
In
and play.
Bristol. Come and play with money.
Yeah, thanks, Sheva.
Please like and subscribe, peeps. We need some engagement to boost us in the eyes of the algorithm, and get the word and spread this noble work far and wide. I'll see you next time, Tim.
Thanks, Sheva. See you soon.